Hello, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome to Career Month, and part of this panel is dedicated towards Career Month 2024, which is a wonderful time for all of us to get together and celebrate the incredible work that's being done across globally in our career development field. I feel very privileged today to be your moderator and get a front row seat to hear the wisdom from our esteemed panelists from the UK, the US, and of course, where I'm coming from, Canada. Today, I'm here with you from Treaty 8 territory, which has been in existence for over 120 years. And it includes over 41 First Nations, which spans across the Canadian provinces of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and British Columbia. I am very grateful to my host today, the Beaver First Nation, for inviting me to be part of this community. And I'm here with them this week to celebrate a 1 week, career month, and also facilitating a practitioner workshop where I get to learn alongside my participants. And because the Beaver First Nation is a remote community where I'm at, if I lose connection, we've got you covered, everybody. The amazing Trina Stanford will step in and to continue to guide the conversation. So we'll have a great time. So without further ado, we are joined by some incredible speakers from the UK, US, and Canada, and I'm going to ask them to turn on their audio and their video. Every single one of them bring rich experiences in career advocacy, and you can read their full bios online because I want to make sure that we maximize our time for the discussion and insights from every single one of them. This session is designed to be conversational as much as Zoom allows. It enables our panelists to take us on their advocacy journey. And also, as they hear from each other, they might also have something to add. So we want to make sure as we were designing this, that this is a dynamic and organic conversation. And if a panelist drops off, I'll either move to the next person and continue the discussion until they return. So let's move on to the first question. So we've got Shelby, Catherine, Serena, Keika, Marty, and Bella. And once again, you can read their bios online. So the first question, I'm going to start with you, Shelby. Why is advocating for career development important to you, your organization, and our professional community? And another way to think about this question, inspired by our colleague Bella here, what gets you up in the morning to do this advocacy work? So Shelby, kick us off.
Thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be surrounded by such wonderful career development practitioners. You'll probably hear us say CDPs a lot. So that's what we're here for. That's what we love to do. So I specifically work in a community college in California, and I love that we accept the top 100% of students, meaning we accept everyone. And what really motivates me in this work and why it's so important to advocate for quality CDPs and quality career development opportunities is because I see the need every day, right? I've got folks fresh from high school trying to decide what they want to do, or in high school in a dual enrollment. And I've got 60 and 70-year-old clients who are trying to navigate the workforce, still need income, still trying to plan for what their future will hold, and everything in between. So just knowing that there's constantly so many moving pieces in our dynamic workforce, and realizing that the need to navigate it, and there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation out there. A lot of students at the community college in particular are told, go to college, everything will be okay. And then when we look at our underemployment rates and unemployment rates of our graduates, we see the disparities. So I think from a social justice lens as well, this work that we do is so important to make sure that everyone has quality opportunities in the workforce, opportunities to decent work. And I'll end it there. I have more to say, but I'll end it there so others can speak.
Yeah. Thank you, Shelby. Catherine, go ahead.
Thank you. So for me, a lot of it's about cheerleading our profession. I am so proud of what I do and always have been a very passionate and very proud CDP. And it is a privilege to do the job we do. I know we all feel like this because we talked about this the other day. And to be part of a community of people that feel like that is a privilege in itself. The CDP community is something quite magical. I know from the CDPs that I know that have either become very close friends of mine or that I admire from afar, many are online today. They are honestly some of the most creative, inspiring, passionate, dedicated people I've ever met, all striving to make a difference to people and the world around them. And I want everybody to know about that. I want the world to know about the work that we do. And I don't want it just to be the CDP echo chamber, which can sometimes fall into being. I want our families, our friends, our professional allies to really understand the depth and the breadth of the job that we do. And I honestly think that if we want people to truly understand that what we do, we need to be the ones that change that, because we will hear horror stories or people who had terrible guidance when they were at school, or they haven't ever had any. There's always a horror story like that. But we all know that there are life-changing stories, past and present, of the difference that CDPs make. And I just think advocacy is a way of us making sure everybody knows that. And if people really are going to truly understand what we do, we have to do that. And I'm so excited to be here today and hear about the amazing initiatives from across the world. So yeah, I'll pass over to whoever's next.
Yeah. And Catherine and Bella, if you can move off to one side so we can see what's in your background. So much more than talking about jobs. Amazing. Hey, Serena, how about you?
Oh, thank you. I am joining from Finland, where it's very, very dark, and this is as bright as I can get, but there's lots of brightness on this screen. So, so many reasons. I think first and foremost, I want to get out of bed and do this advocacy every single day because I've seen the transformational impact of career development. I've seen it with my own eyes, certainly in the work that we and others are doing in career development. It's impossible to deny we've got an incredibly strong evidence base. We see it every day. I saw it before I joined the career development sector. I worked in frontline mental health and I saw it there. I saw it when somebody could connect with learning, meaningful learning, whether that was informal or formal learning, when they could connect with work, whether it was paid or unpaid work, when they could connect with a sense of themselves in the future and possibility and hope. It had a massive impact on their health, on their quality of life. It changed everything. And so we all know that impact, and that's worth advocating for. And the second reason is I do it in solidarity with amazing career development professionals who are doing this work every day. They get out of bed every day to do this work, sometimes under really rough conditions, right? You know, in policy contexts that can be extremely limiting, for not enough pay, considering the complexity and the impact of their work. And if they can get out of bed every morning and fight that fight and do the heroic work, I certainly am prepared to get up bright and early every day as well.
Thank you so much for that. The continual theme I'm hearing is we're doing this together. Collaboration is a key theme that's coming up, and I can't help but to be reminded of that African proverb: is if we want to go fast, go alone. If we want to go far, we're going together. Okay, off to you, Keika.
Yeah, thank you, Candy. I sort of feel like, coming from a marketing background, I don't, my title isn't career development professional, but I feel like I've been adopted into this amazing sector. And I first came in because a friend of mine that I respect deeply said, you really need to check out what CERIC is doing. And you do what your friends that you respect say and tell you to do. And I came into this sector through her. And what I've come to realize is that as a marketer, when I used to grow up as a child, I saw so many people going to work because it was a paycheck, because they had to do it and they didn't love it. So for me as a child, I was like, I am determined to find my way and find work that I get up to do because I love to do it. I want to get up every day and feel passionate about it. And I feel like I found that in marketing. And what was interesting is that in marketing, we want to create brand fans. We want companies to have loyal people who love what their brands are doing and feeling excited about it. Well, in career development, that's exactly what we're doing. We're telling people and helping them see that they have the right to find work that they love, that's meaningful, that gives back to them. And when I discovered that connection, I was completely hooked, and that's why I find that this sector is amazing. Just like Serena and others have echoed here, is that this sector brings together incredible people, and my hope is to bring that marketing lens in so that we can help people across the world see you have the right to find work that lights you up. You have the right to find work that you can make a big difference in, and that's something that we need to get everybody to see. That it's not just a nice to have or you're lucky to have it, but you have the right to have that.
You have the rights. I really like that. Thank you so much. Marty, how about you?
All right. Hello, everyone. And thank you all so very much for just sharing passion. And that's part of the big reason why we do the work that we do is because, yeah, we get to hang out with these amazing people that share the same drive that we do. Keka, I really appreciated what you said that this is a right, right? Career development is rooted in social justice. This is helping people find access to fair paid jobs, to work that treats them fairly. And ultimately, this could be viewed as a human rights issue, like a human being's right to work, because the fact is, we have to work. I mean, very few people have the luxury of like choosing not to work. Yes, we have to work to keep the lights on, to put food on the table, to support ourselves and our family. And we spend the majority of our life within the workplace. So if there's any disruptions or if things are out of whack, it's going to create that ripple effect too. So the work that we do helps empower people to really explore those different opportunities. I really love working here at the University of New Mexico. We have a very large first gen marginalized population, and a lot of the times they don't know what opportunities are out there. So that in and of itself, exploring all the different branches and pathways and getting those aha moments can help instill a sense of hope into people and give them a reason to either finish college or maybe explore different pathways that they might not have known. So this idea of broadening a person's lexicon in order for them to really take control and authorship of lives is such a rewarding part of the work that we do.
Mhm. And I really love the connection hearing what Shelby has said when she started off from the beginning. We take 100%, the top 100%, leaving nobody behind. And then career is everybody's right to decent work, to meaningful work. It's really all coming together. Last but not least, Bella, take us home on this question.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. For those who are joining us live and, of course, later on in the recording, absolutely delighted if you're going to be watching this. We're all really proud, as you can hear today. The reason that career development advocacy, in particular the advocacy for CDPs, gets me out of bed every morning, every time, is that CDPs give so much to their clients, to the economy, to the society. And my question here would be, well, who's looking after us? Who's advocating for us? And we stand on the shoulders of giants. If we're tracing the history of career development, particularly from the 1970s onwards, we really are seeing some amazing people who have put forward some great initiatives. But with the advent of technology, the technology actually has brought us together like nothing has before. And so we have some amazing writers, thinkers, researchers, academics, frontline CDPs. We have policymakers. We have loud and noisy CDPs, much like all of us here today, for advocacy. And I think it's absolutely essential for the well-being of career development professionals to know that actually there are people out there who are very much doing our best to try and change things. So Serena touched on a very interesting point earlier about the working conditions of CDPs. That's something that we should all be concerned about because of the mental capacity that CDPs have. You know, we're not empty vessels, that needs replenishment. And that's, for me, what gets me out of bed every time in the mornings. The fact I feel that campaigns like So Much More Than Talking About Jobs and all of the work that CDPs do in advocating who we are, what we do, who we do it for, why do they need it, and what do they get out of it, is so, so important.
And I would add to that last point, how do the people change as a result of the work that we do with them and for them? Speaks to the idea of impact as well. Thank you for this
Exactly.
wonderful, first answer to the first question. I know that Serena, you have something to add, so you have the floor, the virtual floor.
I'm just picking up, Bella, on your comment about how there are people out there doing advocacy and how important it is that those who are on the front lines really know that. And I would just extend that and say there are people literally around the world doing this advocacy. I'm here at an international event, and there are people in every country around the world that are doing this advocacy work. So there's a real community of advocators out there. So I just wanted to reinforce we are part of a global community,
Indeed.
and together we are stronger.
Well said.
Absolutely. And in thinking about that, moving on to the next question is if the panelists can share a key advocacy initiative from your country that has made a significant impact on career development. If you can tell us with details, what is it, what happened, and any lessons that you've learned from its implementation that other countries can glean knowledge and wisdom from. So Catherine, you can go ahead, please.
Excellent. So yeah, so I'm going to be talking about what's behind me and what's behind Bella. And it's an initiative that started in the UK, but the ripple effects across the globe is just mind-blowing actually, and it has turned into almost a global movement now, which is just incredible. So just a little bit of a backstory for those of you who don't know. So back in February 23, I coined that hashtag, so much more than talking about jobs, as a way of tackling some of the frustration I had, to be honest. So some of what I talked about before, about people misunderstanding what we do or only ever hearing the sort of negative stories. And I've never been one to sort of sit still and just sit and grumble. If I'm annoyed about something, I will try and channel that frustration into positive change. So I thought, in my little corner of the UK, I will try and do my bit. And for me, that was using that hashtag on LinkedIn, whether that be on my own posts or on somebody else's post, if it was a really brilliant story of the impact that they've had, or some kind of really excellent example of good practice, or showcasing the difference that CDPs make. So I'd started to use this hashtag, and the powers of LinkedIn. Bella, who I didn't know at the time, contacted me out of the blue, and she just had the single most brilliant, innovative idea I think I've ever heard, and said, I want to turn your hashtag into a LinkedIn flash mob. I didn't know what that was at that point, but I said, yes, that sounds amazing. And that's what we did. So on the 1st of February 23, we asked lots of our CDP friends across the world to get involved, and wow, did the CDPs come out in force, and they did not disappoint. We had photographs and stories. Some of the people here, Serena, I remember your picture well with your team. People had it over the t-shirts. They had their children involved. They had dogs. We had everything on the 1st of February 2023. It really was coming together, shouting from the rooftops about, and celebrating our workforce. The following year, we celebrated it for the second time, and we continued the theme a little further, and we talked about how we are so much more than talking about jobs, and we shared as a global community client stories and client quotes to showcase the work that we do. And fast forward to now, we're thick in the planning stages for year 3, which is happening on the 3rd of February of 2025. And Bella and I have just set up a LinkedIn group dedicated to this, and it's only been open a week, and I think there's something like 200 members already, which is amazing. So check that out. But I would say the biggest lessons we've learned over the last sort of couple of years is that globally, there is a lot more in common that we all have than we might first think. And yes, we have many shared challenges, actually, which we'll come on to on the next question. But we also have this incredible shared sense of pride of the work that we do. And I think because we share so many challenges, we can then also find shared solutions. There may be oceans between us, but actually we're CDP neighbours, and together, I know Serena just said a moment ago that we're stronger together. If we all come together globally, we are just a force to be reckoned with. And I think this campaign has shown that people from the ground working together can make massive change.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Catherine. This really resonates with me because I think when we were prepping for this conversation, I shared with you all that as much as I love my colleagues within my department and they're amazing people, oftentimes I feel much more connected with you all on this panel and colleagues around the world doing career development work because of that global affinity there. I'm looking at the chat here. NCDA Marianne has shared, people are sharing the location, their passion, and why they're here. Keep up the energy because we really strive on that. So thank you. What is this LinkedIn account name? Somebody have said. So Catherine, is it called so much more than talking about jobs? If people want to sign up right this second?
So it's a LinkedIn group that's new to me. I've never managed a group before. So as far as I'm aware, if you were to search that, it's the hashtag, so much more than talking about jobs, and it is a group. I think there's a resource document that's going to be going to delegates, or it's maybe always on there. So that you can find all the details. But yeah, please do join, and you can hear all about how you can get involved next year and ongoing.
Fantastic. Another group or hashtag that I'm currently using that I would recommend is humans of employment. Employment is limited in saying, what we do, but when we showcase all the various things that we do, from employment, employer relations, working with organizations, changing workplace cultures, increasing mental health and well-being, so much more than everything that we do. So follow those two hashtags, and I'm sure when you look at the resource list that we share with you at the end, if something is not there, contact us, and we'll share where you need to go. Okay, Shelby, tell us about a key advocacy initiative. Oh, for some reason, I'm not hearing Shelby.
Yeah, I can't hear her either.
Okay. Okay, no worries, Shelby. We will give you a pause to fix your audio. What I'll do is I'll move on to Serena and buy you some time. How about that?
Great.
The joys of Zoom.
The power of the moderator. So there's so much happening in Canada. It was hard to nail down. I was told I was only allowed to talk about one thing, so I'm going to try to be good. So this is an initiative, an advocacy initiative that has culminated in making a series of recommendations to policy and industry leaders in our sector. So I'll just give you a little bit about the backstory, and then I'll come to the recommendations. So the backstory is that we really were aware that as a sector, we are quite hidden to the public that we could be serving. Relative to other OECD countries, Canada has one of the lowest rates of usage of career services. Only 19% of Canadians ever take advantage of career services. Most Canadians don't know that there is a career development sector, don't know that there are services that are potentially accessible to them. And ironically, in that OECD study, what they found was that the Canadians that really could benefit from career services the most were the least likely to access them. All of this is disconcerting, obviously, given what we've just been talking about, how transformative career development is, that it can help absolutely everybody, that it does contribute to the socioeconomic health of our countries. The truth is that the sector wasn't just hidden to the public. It actually was hidden to us too. Like, as a sector, at least in Canada, we had no idea how many CDPs were out there, where they were practicing, who they were serving. We just didn't know. And so the step one was with funding from CERIC, the Challenge Factory, in partnership with my organization, CCDF, conducted an evidence-based mapping of the sector. And the report, it's titled Hidden Sector, Hidden Talent. It will be in the resource list that you all get at the end of this session. It had some kind of eye-opening results. For example, we now know that there's somewhere between 40,000 and 60,000 CDPs in Canada. Like, who knew? That is about the same number of CDPs as there are pharmacists in Canada. And yet, ask any Canadian, what does a pharmacist do? Where can you find a pharmacist? Why are pharmacists important? They can answer all those questions, but somehow our sector has remained hidden, has remained not understood, and therefore not valued to the extent that it could and should be. You know, that, and then the study also really did highlight some of the cracks in our sector around the lack of any kind of common standards supported by funders and large employers. So, you know, the reality in Canada is, depending on your postal code, you may access incredible service, but your postal code really will define the accessibility, the content, and the quality of the services that you receive dramatically. And so this mapping study really inspired a desire to move our sector out of the shadows and to address some of these cracks that were shown in the research. And so it's resulted in an open letter with a series that is directed to policymakers and industry leaders, with very specific recommendations. Very quickly, one, create a national career strategy. I am talking tomorrow about with the ministries in Finland about this amazing career strategy that they have. Many countries have career strategy. Many countries have legislated entitlement embedded in those strategies. And so step one in Canada, have a national career strategy, formally recognize the career development sector as a vital profession, and a lever to socioeconomic outcomes. Understand the impact of Canada's fail first public employment approach to public employment service. We have been stuck in a fail first approach. It's not evidence-based. And so we're asking that we really understand that and collaborate with us as a sector to implement alternative evidence-based solutions. Number 5, develop a framework for measuring the impact of our work and the maturity of our ecosystem. Ensure that the sector, industry, and government integrate lifelong learning into their major programs. We know that career development is one of those unicorns that doesn't fit nicely into one government department. We really, we touch on education, we touch on labor, we touched on economic development. And so one of our recommendations is to really be thinking through a career development lens across departments. And finally, there is a proposed federal council on generational fairness. And so to link our career development to that council. And so what's the call to action? The call to action is, number 1, read hidden talent, hidden sector, hidden talent. Number 2, get everyone you know to read it. Number 3, sign the letter. The link will be in the resource package that's shared with you. And finally, number 4, get everyone that you know to sign it as well.
Thank you, Serena. That was technically 2, but I can see how you were having difficulty picking between either one. So I'll let it slip. I can't help but to make the connection to what Keika said earlier, how you originally don't see yourself in career development. So you're accidental career person, right? And connecting it back to this report, hidden talent, hidden sector, how we can, when we open up who might be doing this career development work, we see a lot more people that's within our ecosystem. So, and if only we get more of the Lisa Taylors in the world who convince people you're part of career development and come play with our sandbox. And we can all be that person for somebody when we see that they're doing career development. Okay, Shelby, how are you doing? Oh, go ahead, Keika.
See, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all for bearing with that. I just went into a separate Zoom to test my audio, but we are CDPs. We are resilient. We try a million different ways to make something work. And I'm sure a lot of you relate to that on like a deep soul level. Because sometimes the work we do is figuring plan B, plan C, plan D, or as we call it, parallel planning, right? So I wanted to just speak to, there's so much amazing advocacy work going on in the United States that I'm sure that I don't know about, that I'm sure that the NCDA Government Relations Committee doesn't know about. But I am going to just share one initiative from our Government Relations Committee that we're really proud of. So I serve on that committee with the National Career Development Association. It is very welcoming. We have our Zoom link just on our website, so anybody can join our meeting when they want to join. And that, you know, if you join us in kind, we'll put you to work. We'll give you a task. We're very action oriented. And so one of the things that we did, my colleague Ella O'Flaherty and I served as co-chairs this past year, and now she's carrying on the torch with my colleague Sarah Jantosh. So I want to shout them out, our current government relations co-chairs. And when we came into the committee, there was amazing, amazing work that had been done for years. We had advocated to have a lobbyist work with us and coordinate with us at the state, at the national level. But we actually didn't have a policy platform. And so we would, as a committee, when each issue came up, right, we would have discussions of, is this within our scope? And, you know, in terms of the challenges we face and like trying to put a fine-tuned point on advocacy, it can be really hard to figure out the scope because we are a helping profession. So advocating for CDPs and advocating for our clients, the line between those, honestly, it's very wobbly, at least for me sometimes, really trying to figure out where that is. So we realized we had to have a platform so that if we were going to put our name, our committee, NCDA behind something, that we knew that it made sense within our scope. And one other just personal piece of that is one of the reasons I got involved with advocacy is because at the end of every day, maybe I saw, you know, upwards of 8 clients or students, and I would think about it and realize there's hundreds more behind them that didn't get access to my office or one of my colleagues' office or be able to work with these kind of amazing transformative services. And at the end of the day, some of the challenges they faced were systemic. And then feeling at the end of the day, I helped you navigate this systemic issue, but there's the issue up here that I can't even touch. That's what originally drew me into advocacy. So of course, as we're trying to figure out how to advocate, there are questions about, is this within our scope? And so the easy solution was to look at NCDA, look at all of our committees and initiatives and what we stand for. And we developed this really robust platform of 11 policy areas. You can actually see it on our website, and it's going to be on the resource document that's handed out to you all in the chat. And it's including everything from the fact that many CDPs are small business owners to professional development funding for those who work in agencies and in government facilities and schools and colleges, as well as everything to special populations, and just realizing that we have evidence that there's disproportionate impacts in the workforce. And so we have to speak up and raise our voices about that. That is also advocating for our profession. So please feel free to take a look at those 11 policy areas. We're really proud of them, and we're also still open to tweaking it. If there's something that looks like it's missing or needs more emphasis, they're not in order of importance because we can't rank the importance of these points. There's so many things that we want to look at. And then just real quick on top of that, the other piece of this advocacy is we don't just have the platform and publish it, we put it to work. So every year, NCDA Government Relations flies into Washington, D.C. with the board and advocates directly to our lawmakers, to our legislators about the issues that we're seeing. We share personal stories. We share the impact. You all have been talking so much about impact. We share the impact of the work that we've been doing. And this year we had 3 concrete asks, and we got to see the way that different policymakers would engage with us, support our work. We have some champions, I would say, in Congress that continue to show up for us and pass the legislation. And even just a proclamation of November as National Career Development Month, right? That is such a big thing to just bring that visibility and that recognition. So I'm really proud of that kind of work that we're doing. And it is a group effort. It's been an amazing committee. And we're going to talk about involvement later, but I just have to say, it's so much easier together, like we've been saying. So if you're in the States, then NCDA Government Relations Committee is really doing this work.
Thank you, Shelby. What an inspiring project that you're sharing. So I'm super glad that your audio is working again. And it sounds like you're essentially making very impactful, intentional elevator pitches to the government to say, and top 3 points, these are the priorities and things that we should look at. And I'm really excited to learn more the next time I come to the next NCDA conference that Marty will be chairing in Atlanta, Georgia in June. Okay, so Keika, you had a you were so enthusiastic about responding. So let me turn it back to you.
It was honestly just a quick comment, but I think it really speaks to what Shelby, what you were saying too, that career development professionals have such wisdom and so much passion. But there's a halo effect too, because when we were looking, as Serena said, when we were looking at the Hidden Talent, Hidden Sector report and mapping out Canada's career development professionals, what we found is that there's so many people that have an influence around that. You know, parents have a distinct influence over their kids and the career decisions they make. A mentor at work who might be somebody who's in a particular position might be showing other people how they're breaking boundaries and is a career development influencer. And so the challenge, not the challenge, but really more the opportunity that came out of this mapping was to show us that there's the way to be able to influence top down in terms of policy and influencers, but also the opportunity for us to create conversations from the bottom up. So how do we get those parents at dinner tables talking about career development from a lifelong perspective, not just the fail first piece, but hey, what do you love to do? What's the magic in you? What do you have to bring to the world? What kind of purpose can you bring? Those are the lifelong conversations that we all think about, but often we don't say it out loud. And I think that's the part that we see the opportunity to do that. And maybe, Candy, can I just slip in one initiative that kind of grew from there? So being in marketing and public relations, that's been my bread and butter. One of the things that we implemented in order to get those dinner table conversations going and those workplace water cooler conversations around lifelong career development was to showcase to Canadians across the country the wisdom that career development professionals have. So we created a program called How to Get You and Your Organization Featured in the News. So this was, you know, I've worked in PR for so many years, and I've brought companies and individuals and gotten them featured. And many people think to show up on the 6 o'clock news and share your intel, some magic happens. It's like the Wizard of Oz, you know, pulling some strings in the back. But there are distinct strategies. So we created this course so that any career development professional across Canada, but we've opened it up globally too, could take this so that they could take the amazing things they see every day and put it into news conversations, because that's when we get to the dinner tables, that's when we get to the water cooler conversations, and it is a bottom-up way of really promoting lifelong career development.
Excellent. Thank you, Keika, for mentioning that, because it's already going into our resources. Marianne has been monitoring the chat. Please keep up with your comments and enthusiasm. I'm going to continue to highlight a couple, and there is one person that's already recommending sharing the link to our advocacy playbook that is put on by actually a national group of CDPs in Canada putting this together, championed by CERIC. So thank you so much. Please continue to share your resources. We're going to move on to the third question. What is the biggest challenge when advocating for career development, and how do you address it? Bella, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, this is one of my kind of favorite things to talk about, I think, actually, because as much as I love advocacy, there are definitely some challenges that we're all facing with this. And I think one of the biggest is the lack of the unified voice yet for career development professionals. Now, I do have some good news, and the good news is that a campaign like a global campaign, like So Much More Than Talking About Jobs, is mobilizing. So I think Catherine would probably agree. We're the bugle callers, right? We're not in charge of this campaign. This campaign is for everybody, and it can't work unless we have the voices of everybody globally. So we've been in communication with other career development associations. So the Asia Pacific Career Development Association, we've been in touch with CDance, so the New Zealand, Australia, and other parts of the world as well. And so for us, this is about us coming together, also having a sense of coherence. If we can all agree to call ourselves, for example, career development professionals, brilliant. Right? My aim in life before I retire, and let's face it, I've only got another 19 years to go. In my lifetime, I would love for somebody to ask one of you or one of our audience today, what do you do? And for that audience member or us to say, we're a career development professional. And for that listener to say, that's really interesting. Which part of careers do you work in? Beautiful. Beautiful. Then we're able to go in and say, well, I work in a school, or I work in a university, or I work in a program for disadvantaged youth, or I work in another area of careers. This is really where we need to get to it. I think is articulating what we do as well. The two are inextricably linked for me. And one of the other challenges we have is that our professional allies do not know who we are and what we do yet. So if you ask human resources, they have a vague understanding of who we are. Recruiters might have a vague understanding of who we are as well. They are our greatest allies. Unless we're able to explain who we are, what we do, who we do it for, why do they need it, what do they get out of it, we're going to be in a little bit of trouble. Now, we advocate for our clients all the time on this. Get your personal branding message correct, and your employers will immediately understand your benefit and value. We need to be able to follow our own advice there, to be frank. And so if we look at the differences, very briefly, look at the differences. If we think about human resources professionals who are absolutely brilliant in building out job families, being able to help develop the careers in situ within a position of employment, of course, and of course giving opportunity to individuals, helping the local economy and society in a kind of similar way, but slightly different. And you might also say for some human resources professionals, they're not always known for their warm and fuzzies. And that's where they can make a great referral to us, right? We are there to be an emotional support through some difficult career decision making that involves systemic considerations. So that involves community, it involves education, it involves opportunity structures. So from that perspective, they have something to learn from us, as well, of course, as career development theory, which human resources professionals don't bring. Our recruiter cousins are really brilliant on coaching. They're great on coaching with resumes, great on coaching with interview skills and perhaps job search processes. Many recruiters will be working in outplacement services, from which I'm working at the moment. See many of them there. But what they're not so good at, again, or not so good at, it's the wrong word to use, perhaps they don't have the scope for, it's probably a better way to put it, is that emotional support and the problem solving ability that we have when you're working with somebody who is facing fear. That's something that career development practitioners are very, very well trained for, and we enjoy doing. So for us to be able to quantify and qualify that also involves credibility, and our continuing professional development is essential to that. And I think it's a bit like being, kind of shoemaker's children, really. The shoemaker is making shoes, but kind of his or her children are running around barefoot. Quite often, the career development professional sector, our needs are neglected. And I think it's really important that a campaign like So Much More Than Talking About Jobs, or any other advocacy campaign out there, or advocacy work, is saying to CDPs, actually, look, if you can't look after yourself, you cannot look after anybody else fully. So you'll be present, but will you be connected fully? And that's the wonderful thing that's been happening with the advocacy as bugle callers, is just how many voices are really out there who are contributing to this movement going forward. And I do believe, like Catherine said earlier, it is indeed a movement. It's absolutely gathering pace. And I think the ability to connect with each other is essential. And I do think, finally, to finish that question, we need stronger links with employers. We need stronger links with educational institutions and community organisations. So they're the individuals, human resources and recruiters to start. And then there are the institution level connectors that we need as well. And we are all bringing different things here. So mine's around the career development professional as an individual, but there are many of us out there who are saying, look, yeah, that's great, but I'd rather concentrate on the organizational side. Beautiful, knock yourself out. We can't do everything. And it's important that because we're all different, we all bring different things, different strengths, and different abilities to communicate our message effectively.
Thank you, Bella. I can't help but to go back to what you said earlier, who we are, who are we doing this for? What do they need from us, and how did they change as a result of the work with them? Those questions doesn't just resonate in terms of the clients and people that we serve on a day-to-day basis, but organizations, associations, and partners, likely and unlikely partners that we work with. So thank you for that comment.
You're welcome.
Marty, biggest challenge, tell us.
Awesome. And Bella, thank you for that wonderful response. There for a moment, I forgot that I was on the panel because I was just listening to you talk. So that was such a wonderful answer. But yeah, going back to that lack of understanding, I think it's people failing to see the value of long-term investment within career development. Like this pays out dividends whenever we actually, focus on it and put some effort into it. So Shelby had mentioned our Hill Day, and one of the things that our GRC team put together was a list of funding of how much developed nations actually spend on career development. The United States was dead last on the list of developed nations. So it's not an investment. It's not a priority for a lot of people. Candy, you had mentioned having that elevator pitch, right? And that's what we did whenever we were in DC. We had our talking points, our areas, and what we wanted to say. But whenever we bring that conversation out and actually address career development, we might not all be on the same page. And Bella, like you mentioned, that unity in even just addressing what we call our profession. I mean, I am a mental health counselor and also a career counselor, but here in the States, every single state almost has a different way of addressing what is a mental health counselor, what's the label. So being able to have people know career development practitioner. Okay, great. What area do you focus in? Oh, yeah, I'm in the mental health area, and this is what I do. I'm in the skill development area, and this is what I do. That could be really wonderful because it helps with the educational piece. I was at the Arab Career Development Conference in Alexandria this August, and I was talking to an individual who worked for an international organization, and they were very boots on the ground. They were trying to connect people with work. And I thought, like, I wonder if there might be collaboration in the works, just kind of seeing how we could help support one another. And so I gave what I thought my helpful pitch was for career development. And this individual made a face and said, well, we really don't do the warm and fuzzy work, and walked away. And I was like, oh man, okay. Did I miss something in this explanation? Am I not communicating the message of what we do? But then also that failure to see, like, okay, the short-term investment is important, but the long-term investment and the way that can impact the economy, people helping other people, is just crucial to what we do.
Thank you. Absolutely. And thank you for representing at ACDC to influence and to learn, exchange practices. And I'd be very curious to hear, aside from the amazing post that I saw on LinkedIn during that time period, what you're taking away from it. So we'll have a conversation another time. Thank you, Marty. Keika, how about you?
Yeah, can I bring in a two-letter word that is changing everyone's life right now? AI. It's when we look at technology, I heard from somebody the other day that our technology over the last 10 years has changed more so than we have seen in the last 100 years. And we're going to exponentially surpass that growth within the next 2 years. So the one thing that in the context of all of these conversations, I would say most people around the world, especially in Canada, we can see are living in a sense of chaos because there's uncertainty, things are changing, what's going to happen to our jobs. And so it's sometimes harder for people to think long-term career development for the public good, the right for everybody, when it's like, am I going to lose my job in the next 6 months because AI is going to take over and I'm trying to teach AI how to do my job? I recently was at a conference around technology with CERIC, and one of the biggest things that some of the tech gurus were saying is, don't go into anything too deep technology-wise, just explore and play the field, because the minute you go too deep, something's going to change and something new will come up. But from a neuroscience perspective, when we do something new or we're in chaos, it takes a lot of brain power and energy. So one of the challenges we have when it comes to conversations in the career development space is AI and technology is changing a lot of things. We are hidden in many ways. We are working in the ground at a grassroots level in many ways. So there aren't a lot of structured frameworks that we can hang our hats on and say, yeah, this is where we are and this is what we're doing. So we have to figure out a way to collectively know that we're all in this together. And I think, Marta, you talked on this, Bella touched upon this too. And conversations like this are a great opportunity for us to know we're not alone. Chaos can feel very disjointed and very unnerving when you're by yourself. And many people are having their own career conversations around AI to themselves, going, where do I go? What do I do? How do I do this? But when we bring that out into the public sphere and all talk about it and know that you have an entire passionate, dedicated sector here to help support you, it changes the conversation. I think that's one of the things in Canada. So many of our initiatives are laddering up from the bottom up and top down, because we want people to know we're not alone, and we have to start talking about these things, because that's the way that we can continue to figure out all the new things and progress together.
Mhm. Talking in their languages, sharing, our lexicon, which was terminology that Marty had talked about. There's some comments that Marianne is sharing with us through the chat here is, there's a lack of consistency between job titles. Siobhan Neary had found nearly over 100 titles that describes what somebody in career development field does from the UK. So we've got some ideas and on how we can do that, but common definitions is definitely important. I know, Bella, you wanted to follow up with a comment, so you go ahead
I
before we move on to the last question.
I did. I just wanted to clarify for the audience out there and everybody listening and watching, is when I'm talking about HR not always having the warm and fuzzy. So what I mean by that is everything is contextual. It's not because they're unfeeling people. They're working in an environment where they're not able always to have the time and space to be able to spend with employees in the way that they would actually want to. And recruiters might be working under some similar conditions because they're moving very, very fast. So, that's where CDPs can partner very successfully with both of those groups. So I just wanted to clarify that. And of course, in outplacement work, which I work in, career coaching, there are very, very many HRPs and recruiters, former recruiters there. So I work happily alongside them.
Thank you. Friends, we're moving to our final question. I just want to give everybody who's participating today a heads up. Please continue to post your comments. And if you have any questions that you might want to pose to our expert panelists, do that now so that we can get to them right away to maximize our time together, so we can best learn from them. So here's the final question, and to everybody, how can an individual career development professional get involved in advocacy initiative in our day-to-day work? And it's daunting to say I'm responsible to advocate for my sector, but what are some of the things that we can do on a regular basis? If you can offer any practical steps that an individual CDP can take to contribute to the future of career development. And so I'll turn the order, same order again. So Shelby, why don't you go ahead?
Yes, thank you for this question, especially, as someone who had forgotten everything I learned about how government and law works in high school by the time I joined the Government Relations Committee. My co-chair, Elle, lives in DC, and she did a lot of educating. So you can get involved no matter what your knowledge level is of how public policy works, how legislation works. And I just want to make that really clear. I've learned so much just over the year of serving as co-chair. And honestly, I think one of the first and easiest ways to get involved is just informing yourself. And I know that seems like a silly one, but you know, here in California, I'm on the newsletter for the Public Policy Institute of California. There's advocacy groups that are adjacent to me. So Bella talked about professional allies. So, you know, you can find they all have government relations teams and email lists. And once you're on those newsletters, it's eye-opening how much is happening. And from a public policy and legislative perspective alone, that impacts our work. So I just think that's the first thing, is just subscribing to newsletters and just increasing your level of awareness. That's one thing that's easy, tangible. And then once you're aware, you can figure out where your advocacy lies. Oh, there's a public comment period for this new thing that's happening in my local community. Maybe I want to show up and have a public comment. Maybe I want to email all my colleagues at my work site so they can come with me, right? That's how these movements happen, right? We've talked about ground up movements. The other thing I really want to highlight is what Keika shared about getting stories in the media and the voices that we have. Getting those uplifted stories, whether they're stories of career development practitioners and professionals or of our clients, right? If you want to uplift a specific social issue that your client is a perfect amalgam for, and obviously with anonymity and using ethics and everything like that, you can still uplift people's stories so that they provide a voice and something for people to get behind. So I think there's just so many interesting things that you could get involved with. And newsletters is one way to start. The second way is media and op-eds. And the third one I'll mention is coalition building. So joining the NCDA Government Relations Committee, joining a local coalition, joining CERIC if you're in Canada, join whatever is near you, and then beyond, right? Because we've already had so many countries mentioned and in attendance today. So this is a global movement. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelby. I really like the newsletter idea. I put it on my task list to sign up. And it goes back to the idea, what's, what dialogues are they having? What are topics that interest, that are of concern to them, that we can use career development as a strategy and a solution to help collaborate and work together. Catherine.
Yeah, so picking up actually what Shelby said there about everybody getting involved, no matter who you are and what your role is. And I actually stumbled across a quote this week that made me think about this question. Now, I tried to do some research to find the source of the quote, and I couldn't quite figure out whether it was an old African proverb, the Dalai Lama had said it, or whether it was Anita Roddick, the founder of the Body Shop retail chain. It seemed to be aligned with all three of them. But the quote went something like this. If you think you're too small to make a difference, try going to bed with a mosquito in the room. And I just think there's a lot to be said for that, because I think we can all fall into that trap of thinking, well, either, oh, my voice isn't important enough, like I'm not one of the change makers, I'm not a policy maker, or it's not my responsibility, or maybe my voice doesn't matter. And it couldn't be further from the truth. Every single CDP voice matters. And we've said lots today about working together collaboratively, and the greatest changes come when we all come together. And it doesn't always have to be top down. Again, we've heard today of some of the most incredible campaigns from the ground. Those grassroots campaigns are so powerful. But for those to work, everybody's voice has to be heard, and everybody's voice is as equally powerful and important as everybody else's. And I think that would be one of my sort of main messages, really. But the other thing I wanted to say, because obviously I've said a lot today about trying to dispel myths and trying to get sort of people outside of the sector to understand what we do. And something I've started to try to do is share my passion about what I do just in general conversation. So friends, family, the person I'm sitting opposite on the train, my neighbour who designed my original So Much More Than Talking About Jobs t-shirt for me. I take those opportunities to share my passion about this sector. So rather than in the past where I'd maybe sort of shy away from it, I'm just a careers advisor, or I'd think, they're going to find my job really boring, like they don't want to hear about my job. Actually, I go, no, I'm going to be proud of what I do. I'm going to be proud of my sector, and I'm going to tell everybody that I come across. So I would say that we can all do that. We can all tell somebody, we can change this misconception about who we are and what we do, one conversation at a time with anybody that we talk to, not just within ourselves as CDPs.
Wonderful. There's a comment there with the facilitator chat, Shelby. We can all be mosquitoes. I'm going to offer a different insect at the end, but what a lovely quote, right? And I find that when I have those conversations with people outside of career development, it puts them at ease. They start to have questions and curiosity and want to engage with us too. So thank
Well,
you
I've
for
had
that.
people, when I have told them about my job, say, how do I train? Because I think they
Yeah.
realize how great a job it is. And when they realize what the reality of it, they're like, I want to do that. I want to feel like you do at work.
Mhm. Exactly. Thank you so much. Serena.
Okay, I have 4 quick things. The first is be interested in advocacy. You came to this session, and so you already have achieved that first thing. So I would just say keep being interested, because so many of the advocacy initiatives do have specific calls for action, whether it's signing an open letter or whatever it might be. There's all kinds of doorways into advocacy just by being interested in it. Secondly, I would say read the policies that govern your work. So very concrete example, in Canada, the LMDA is the policy that overarches all public employment service across the country. Somehow, we have some provinces where every single career practitioner receives full training and is supported to be certified. We have other provinces where that's almost not allowed to even get training if you pay for it yourself. Same policy. So being policy literate and understanding those policies gives you the power to advocate where you see cracks in the policies, where you see them not being implemented as they could be implemented. Thirdly, get trained and certified. It raises the bar, it increases our visibility, and it shows our pride in profession. And finally, I'm going to echo what you said, Catherine. Tell everybody. You know, when I worked in mental health, I'd be at a party and inevitably I'd end up in a kitchen with somebody wanting to talk about, their son or their daughter or whatever. But that's happening all the time now when people find out that I work in career development too. And talking about what we do just opens up all kinds of doors, I would say, with everybody. And I would include on that list your local politicians. They are literally paid to represent you. Their door has to be open to you. And so you don't need to have a perfectly polished spiel. Just go in, tell them what you do, tell them some of the pain points that you're seeing. They are paid to listen to you. So I would encourage you to talk to your local politicians as well.
Okay, you heard it. Put your politicians to work. Okay, so thank you so much, Serena. Keika.
Okay. I wanted to start by saying, for everybody who's on this live chat with us today, and the people who are listening to this in the recording afterwards, how many of you feel passionate and inspired, but a little tired and a little overwhelmed day to day? We often have really great interests and grandiose plans and all the things that we want to do. And the intention is way up here, but then the action often falls off. And with advocacy, action is critically important. So I'm going to quote a gentleman that I spoke to at an event the other day who was so inspiring, John Molidor. He specializes in neuroscience. And he had said, the key to any change is set the bar really low. I don't want to get my hand slapped by any organizers here, but I think the key thing is here, do what feels easy to you. So if you're an introvert and you like to think about things, don't force yourself to go up on stage and shout from a stage top, because that's going to be a lot of energy and it's hard and the action can fall. But if you want to write a LinkedIn article or a post with your inspiration or something thoughtful or share, do whatever comes easy to you, because that's where the baby steps make a big difference. We talked about the mosquito, and I often think about the power of lava. Have you ever seen when lava comes down and it's slow moving, but it's coming and it's unstoppable? So when you have a global movement of people, everybody taking baby steps and doing what's easy for them, we become the lava that changes a movement. So let's just remember that our intention can be great. Taking action is harder. So take those baby steps and do what comes easy for you. When all of us do this, massive change can happen.
I really like the notion of gradually then suddenly, and what Catherine has said earlier. It's one conversation at a time to grow this movement. Thank you. Marty.
All right. Thank you everyone so far for your comments. And heck, I had to have a little bit of a chuckle whenever you're talking about dropping the bar. I've used those words with my clients whenever we're setting goals, because what is advocacy work with it's we're trying to make change, and part of that change is setting goals. But if the goal is too lofty or not, even close to where we're at, it's going to be self-defeating, because as hard as we work, we're not going to reach that level. So having those realistic expectations of the work that we do, recognizing that it takes time, it takes progress, it takes unity. And a lot of this talk around fear and uncertainty that's happening within career, that could be very isolating. Because if we're scared as people and we're unsure of the outcome, we could think that, like, oh no, I'm the only one that's feeling that way. But to have conversations with other people to kind of identify, like, okay, so you're worried about the uncertainty, we're worried about AI, worker protection, worker rights. How can we get involved with this? So helping people understand that by shifting that worry into action, that can help. And advocacy is action. So, c- um, talking to other people to find out what's out there, getting involved at the local level. What are the local policies going on? What are groups that you can join to support? And just really that communication is networking too, because part of this is just us informing ourselves and helping people understand there are different avenues for change out there. So having people follow their folly. What are they passionate about? How can they get involved? Maybe it is writing a letter. Maybe it is taking that next step and going up to Parliament or to the state capitol and having those conversations. But there's so many different avenues for people to get involved, but just encouraging them to take that first little step. Even if it's stepping over the bar on the ground, that's action, that's part of the change, and that's how people can start to get involved.
Thank you, Marty. I understand there's lots of responses and in the chat on the tired and overwhelmed. It's doing what you can with the resources that you have. And some days you're like, today is not the day for me to do this. I'm going to collect my energy, save it up so that I can take it on the next day or the next week. So it's about that balance and doing what you can. Okay, Bella.
Okay, you're absolutely right, Candy. So I'm going to ask the audience, save yourselves for Monday, the 3rd of February 2025. We are in year 3 of So Much More Than Talking About Jobs. And this year's theme is CDP Behind the Scenes, how we impact individuals, the economy and society. And to take part, all it involves is putting a post on LinkedIn. And if you don't want to put a post on LinkedIn on that day, please like, please comment, please follow and support your fellow CDPs. So that's the kind of contribution you can make. The first year we started this campaign, we had 800,000 hits. Last year we reached 1.6 million. Can you imagine what it's going to be like and how cool that's going to be for our profession if we can make that even higher? This is about continuing our momentum and encouraging each other as much as we possibly can. Speaking to our allies wherever we possibly can, offering to help our allies as well where we can. We bring a lot of expertise in career development theory, so how people make career decisions, why they make the career decisions they make. And the community factors that are involved in that, that's really useful information across a career span of a lifetime, not just at the beginning of somebody's career, all the way through right to the end. We'd love to be able to share who we are and what we do with you more, and we're hoping that you can help us along the way. And if there's anything we can do for you, of course, don't even hesitate. Reach out to us. You'll be really surprised how friendly some of the greatest writers, thinkers, contributors really are. I remember reaching reaching out to some of the theorists when I first started off doing this work in 2022. Somebody's mentioned Dr. Siobhan Neary, and I remember reaching out to her thinking, oh my God, she's never going to respond to a mere minnow like me. And she was absolutely lovely. I involved her in part of my research that I was doing, and it turns out she'd received some apples to make cider from my brother-in-law, who works at the same university. What are the odds? I had no idea the two of them knew each other. So it's a very small world. Please do reach out. We are a friendly lot, and we're here to help.
Thank you. And I say this speaking from experience, I'm biased. I think career development professionals, they are the conferences we have. People are the nicest people are part of these conversations. And I would say the same thing about Siobhan. And Siobhan, if you're listening, you have the coolest necklaces. And just, all these people, they publish, they write, they're advocates in the field, but they are also very, very approachable and accessible. So please, including the panelists that are here today, I know that, if you email and contact them, they will write back and say thank you for having that conversation. So those are all of the questions. And what I'd like to do is we've got some questions from the audience. I'm going to pass it to the amazing Melissa Venable, who will be the moderator for the Q&A. But first of all, thank you to the panelists, and I'll come back for a final conclusion as well.
Thank you all so much, and thank you, Dr. Ho. I'm excited to share some of these questions with you, and attendees, please continue to add the questions that you may have to the chat, and we'll see how many of those we can get to today. So the first one is, with the expected changes to the government priorities, possible changes to the federal programs, fundings, and policies, such as immigration and work authorizations in the United States, what shifts do you expect as major areas of advocacy for CDPs? And then there's a second part to that, but I'll go with that first part first.
I can jump in and speak to this. So yeah, I'm in the States. We just had an election. I'm sure nobody heard about that. So I think for me, sometimes it helps to go back to that idea of our platform and of our scope, and to think about it twofold. What am I advocating for my professional colleagues and for myself? And what am I advocating for my clients? And I can't just do one, I have to do both. It's just, I think it's who we are as helping professionals. So you mentioned specifically work authorization, right? We almost had a huge win in California. Our state legislature passed a regulation that undocumented folks would get work permits while they're in school to work on campus. It actually passed in our local House and Senate, and it only didn't pass because our governor vetoed it. But think of how far that got, right? And so you'll hear me talking about California. I'm talking about both that and nationally. Sometimes our states create models for us. Sometimes we have a win that turns out being a loss. And so I think one of the things that I've learned from watching that is seeing how many people got excited about it, and of course the letdown, right, when it was vetoed, but also realizing, wow, it got farther than it ever got before, and it's not just going to die. It's not just going to go away. There are still multiple organizations, CDP related and not, that are fighting for work authorization for undocumented folks, at least in the state, and I'm sure beyond that, right? And so one thing to look at is, what is an issue either for myself and my professional community or for my clients? And it could be either, it could be both. Just remember what Keika said about exhausted and overwhelmed, and think about which ones you like, and be able to figure out how you can connect to community, because I think this work doesn't, we've said this a million times, right? It's so isolating to do it alone. It's so easy to feel hopeless. One other thing I just want to point out, this is from my colleague, Trevor Lehman, who is in CERIC. He introduced me to this concept of passive hope versus active hope. And so if you think about having these two buckets, one is your passive hope bucket. I hope that there's a global response for climate action so that our planet isn't destroyed. I'm not out canvassing for that right now. That's okay. That's passive hope, right? What is the active hope? Maybe the issue I really care about is specifically pay for CDPs, right? Some of my colleagues have vastly disparity in terms of how they're paid, and a lot of them invested highly in their education, right? So maybe that's the issue I really want to stick on. Maybe that's my active hope issue, and how do I build power around that? Is it the NCDA credentials? Is it raising our voice in the media? Is it joining the committee and really the government relations committee and really focusing on that issue and always bringing it up in our meetings? Because that makes a difference too. And there's that mosquito in the room. I love that analogy, Catherine. I'm thinking, what do I want to be a mosquito about? So those are just some of my thoughts with the upcoming changes. There's a lot we can't control, right? And there's a lot that might have to sit in the passive hope bucket. But what I'm trying to recenter myself on and my colleagues is what can we put in our active hope bucket and what can we really be working towards and having that impact.
Thanks, Shelby. You've given us some things to think about there. We can all make a list, I think, of where we fall in those categories. Serena, did you want to add to this one?
Just one piece. I think, when our kind of usual suspects in terms of who we advocate with. So, for career development, often it is the departments of labor or the departments of education. They're the kind of our usual suspects. So when those get constricted and when the policy environment in those departments is not welcoming, I think that we can expand our horizons and think about how do we advocate with departments of health? We know that career development improves mental health and well-being. We know that it improves physical health outcomes. How do we advocate with departments of justice? We know that good career development reduces both entry into prisons and reduces recidivism. We can be advocating with, departments of economic development. We have all kinds of data around the socioeconomic impacts of career development. So I think if we can kind of get out of our advocacy boxes when some areas are constrained and limited for us, let's look elsewhere.
Thank you. And there's a follow-up to this. I think you're all already kind of touching on, but I want to get the follow-up question out to see if there's some additional information you'd like to share. So how should CDPs prepare themselves? How can we prepare each other and prepare those that are coming up in the field to recognize, support, and advocate for people impacted by systemic impact related to what's happening politically and how the worldview is changing?
I'd be happy to jump into that, Melissa. I think one of the things that we can't underestimate is the power of stories. And so whether that's telling the stories of the people who are impacted in the media, on social media, to our politicians, for example, the influential policy advisors, the ones who have a responsibility to listen to what's happening. We see people's stories every day. And the one thing I can tell you, having worked in marketing for so long, I've done things from working on a mining company to skincare products to accounting services, the whole gamut. But there is a humanity in all of us that connects us to each other. And storytelling is powerful because it connects to us in that capacity. And most decisions at any level, no matter how much we like to say it's rational, it's pulled by emotional storytelling. So if we want to make those differences, we need to tell the stories of the people we see affected and bring that humanity out to the forefront. Because when we do that, people will listen. Emotion is the language that we use to understand each other and connect with each other. And that can be impactful both on a grand scale, but also on a micro scale as well.
Thank you, Keika. That kind of gets us back to those baby steps too, right? I used to have a professor who would say baby steps for baby feet. It's like we can move at the size, of the feet under us. So, find those places where you can interact and get to it. We've got another question in the chat, Shelby. I think this one will be one that you can help with. Which webinars sponsored by NCDA do you recommend for viewing? And is there one around advocacy?
Yeah, so we've all mentioned that there's going to be a handout, and luckily NCDA does such a great job of recording their webinars. So my co-chair of the Government Relations Committee, Elle, and I did one back in April, so it's not too old. We talked a lot. We overviewed our policy platform. We talked about how to get involved. We talked about legislation at the time, which is still, impacting us. AI, we've already heard it today. It's evergreen. So I would recommend that webinar. We also did a podcast, so feel free. If you're sick of my voice, I'd say maybe instead of webinars, come to our meetings, right? Share your voice with us, right? And start with what you're comfortable with. So if you're good with webinars, start with webinars. But I encourage you to kind of, just like Keika said, move into action a little bit as well. And you can find that on the resource sheet. You can also get professional development CEU credits if you want to. So check out the NCDA webinar website. You'll find it there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you were involved in a lot of those things, so thank you for being there for that as well. We've got kind of a fun question, which I think will be interesting. Catherine and Bella, this one is for you. Folks want to know where to get those T-shirts.
Uh,
Oh,
That's a
we've been
great
asked this
question.
before.
Catherine, over to you.
Yeah, we've been asked this many, many times before. It's very much up to people to do it for themselves. There is no commercial element to So Much More Than Talking About Jobs. People have handmade them, scribbled it on, with pen. People have done it digitally, and just had the image on the screen. Yeah, we're not going to be selling them anytime soon. All I would say is get creative. The ones that we have is we've just bought a jumper, a sweatshirt, and we've had it printed. My original one is hand drawn on it. So yeah, we're not selling them. Sorry.
I actually, on the hashtag So Much More Than Talking About Jobs LinkedIn group, I actually put a post on there saying, look, if there was a stork that dropped, several million bucks from the sky, that would be fantastic, because the one thing that advocacy is missing is funding. So many of us do this for free. We do it because we love it. And we do it because we believe in it, and it still galvanizes us. But so yeah, we're waiting for that CDP stalk. If there's anybody listening who has a rich uncle, auntie, or any other relative in the audience, please do let us know, because the day that happens, we are going to be printing them for every CDP in the world. I can tell you that.
But people did make some fabulous ones themselves. And my
They
favorite,
did.
I think this might be one of Bella's favorites as well. This was in year one. The career legend that is Leanne Hamley, which I'm sure lots of you will be aware of. She'd done one, and she'd done her own version that she'd put on her dog, and it said "So Much More Than Talking About Dogs," which I just thought was genius, and it will go down in history as one of my favorite LinkedIn posts ever.
Dick
There's a-
possibly print on demand fundraiser in the future. There may be something, maybe around February 3rd. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, ask the
Yeah.
universe,
Yeah, we can't wait to see you all there and your posts. Honestly, that's one of the best bits about that day, is the fact that usually Catherine and I, we stop working that day basically, and we're furiously responding to every single post and liking and commenting and resharing and doing all sorts of things, and it does make a huge difference. You'd be really surprised, and it's very rare that all of us can come together globally on the same day and just go, there you go, everybody. This is who we are and what we do, and this is us behind the scenes. So yeah, can't wait for that.
Well, can I just say thank you, because people have really taken the call to action seriously. I've just checked my LinkedIn, and 23 people have joined the group whilst we've been live today. So whoever you are, thank you, and welcome to the So Much More Than Talking About Jobs LinkedIn group.
I think that's a wonderful segue and kind of a nice wrap here. And then we're all getting involved, even in this virtual room, to kind of carry the conversation out beyond this session. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Dr. Ho.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. And thank you to the panelists, Shelby, Catherine, Serena, Keika, Marty, and Bella. Everybody for sharing your insights and experiences. And of course, we couldn't have done it with Marianne, without Marianne corralling us for this virtual panel. I know we talked about mosquitoes, but I want to make one more proposal. I'm fascinated by bees. So this is a bee pin that I received a couple of weeks ago when I was in Mexico. I really like the idea of cross-pollination. And I think when I walk away from this conversation, that's what we're going to be thinking about. Bees do so much good for the world. They move from, one type of plant to another, but ultimately, wherever they go, wherever they leave, they make our earth grow. And I think that's what CDPs do. And I don't have anything more insightful than that, because the panelists have already thrown all of that at you. So my final word of wisdom is to be a bee, and just to say thank you, everybody, for being the cross-pollinators that the world needs today, and being part of this important conversation, because advocacy, we're a collective effort, and it starts with us being these busy bees going out there to make good trouble. So happy Career Month, everybody, and off to you, Marty.
Wonderful. Thank you, Candy, very much. And it was great because whenever you said you had thought of another animal for representation, the bee came to my mind too. Because yes, they're crucial and it does. They help the world grow. So yay. Thank you all very much for everybody who is on our panel, for sharing your valuable insights and experiences. Today's discussion has highlighted the importance of advocacy in shaping the future of career development across borders, showing us that this work transcends industries, cultures, and geographies. We've learned about impactful initiatives, strategies to overcome challenges, and practical ways each of us can make a difference. Advocacy isn't just the responsibility of organizations. Individual career practitioners have a crucial role to play, whether by participating in local initiatives, building partnerships, or raising awareness of career development's value. Every action counts towards creating a future where more people can achieve meaningful career and life goals. As we leave here today, I encourage you to reflect on how you can contribute to the advocacy efforts, both locally and globally. Together, we can elevate the importance of career development and empower individuals to navigate their journeys with purpose and intent. Thank you again to our panelists and to all of our attendees. Loved hearing that the chat was active and that people were asking questions. And again, you people that are attending, that's why we do the work, is because this is community and this is collaboration. Let's continue to build momentum and shape a future where career development is a priority for all. Please enjoy the rest of your day. I sincerely hope to see you in Atlanta, Georgia next year. And thank you again for attending the summit.
Thank you, Marty. Everyone, this concludes our live virtual event of the North American Career Week. You may continue to access the virtual platform to view this recorded event until February 28th. If you purchased continuing education for this event, those CEs will be automatically transferred to your NCDA record, and you can access that record and transcript anytime by logging into your NCDA account at www.ncda.org. We'll also be sending out a post-event survey, so please watch for that and take a moment to share your thoughts on this session when you receive that link to the survey. We would like to thank all of our presenters for participating in the virtual event, and thank you all for attending. Have a wonderful day.